My name is Noah Aviva Daniel, but it wasn't always that way. I was named Noah by my father in celebration of my birth, the first grandchild on both sides of my family, and given a biblical Hebrew name because it was meaningful to my parents who had moved to Israel. Noah was written about in the book of Numbers among the 5 daughters of Zelophehad because their achievement was a turning point in women's rights regarding the inheritance of land. Additionally, the story of these women offers a compelling lesson for all those who believe that their destiny is fixed by circumstance. Our last name didn't change in the regular border way by some guard who couldn't pronounce it. My family arrived from Europe with the last name Prinz. Soon after, my cousin saw a person calling their dog Prince, and feeling his people had been treated like dogs long enough, he changed his name to Schwartz. My middle name, Aviva, was chosen after my grandfather Abraham, because he was the most beloved grandfather to my mom. He was a tailor who made her things and was a wonderful babysitter. I was only 8 months old when my parents moved back to Toronto and ended up buying a house in Burlington where I was raised. My name really became strange to me when I left the comfort of the Hamilton Hebrew Academy and started at M.M. Robinson High School. As one of the only Jews, no one seemed to be able to process a girl named Noah. They thought my name was Nola, Nora, or Noel. When I finished high school, the world of my name opened up for me. Cacharel put out a fragrance called Noah, and seeing my name in print felt amazing. In university, I discovered Gauguin and his Tahitian journal called Noah Noah. Then in Toronto, where I moved, Noah was even becoming a more popular baby name. I've had many nicknames: Noe, Noela, No, Schwartz, as in may the Schwartz be with you, and Schwartzy. My last name meant a lot to me. It may have only been 4 generations old, but it was mine. When our eldest daughter was 5, she asked me if I would please have the same last name as her. I had no intention of ever taking on a married name. I had achieved awards, had 2 children's books published, and framed a series of degrees with my name on it, but I happened to be changing schools at the time, so I acquiesced to that face. Then it started to plague me. What was I doing? Giving up my life's identity and my professional name built over 14 years at that point? My name meant something to me. People knew and respected Noah Schwartz. Who the heck was Noah Daniel? During this transitional time of struggle, my husband questioned my deep deliberations and audaciously asked me, "So, what's in a name anyway?" That spurred some frustration, but it also got me thinking, what is in a name? I've seen the movie A Knight's Tale more times than I can care to admit. A very good-looking, now deceased actor plays a Thatcher named William, pretending to be Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein. In the final moments of the film, the whole stadium chants the real name of the newly knighted jouster. There's a line that says, "Will, that's your name," they're shouting. In the movie Molly's Game, based on a true story, Molly Bloom, who ran the world's most exclusive high-stakes poker game, then became an FBI target. To get a $1 million book deal, all she had to do was name names, but she refused. She had nothing left but her name, and that was enough for her to fight. What's in a Name is the name of a project I created after that interaction with my husband. It was something I thought would be a twist on the traditional introduce yourself type activity, to build community around who's in the room, as learners listen to get to know a wider view of their classmates. Over the years, it's evolved to become a diagnostic for presentation and research skills, gathering primary sources by interviewing parents on their name choice. Through secondary sources, learners find the etymology of their name, who shares it, and how and where it's used. Student reflections have spanned from personal gratitude about the discovery of their name story to a deep appreciation of seeing more in their classmates and themselves. One valedictorian even noted that this was one of the most significant assignments he had ever experienced in school. And for those unhappy with the choice, students can propose a name they wish they had been given. It's a project that I share far and wide because it helps students learn about themselves while building skill, agency, and connection to their lives and their class community. Teaching in York Region, it's clear that the What's in a Name project helps develop cultural literacy in a diverse classroom. We learn a lot about language, family traditions, and personal identities. Seeing my student Rachel present her win for the Student Voice Talks at this year's Quest was epic. Now, my entire school has taken on this project for the Silver Pines Film Festival. Listening to classrooms across the building buzzing with name stories and teachers sharing so much of themselves through their examples is surreal. What's in a name? Your name is your story. It connects you to the past, to your family and their traditions, to the language of your people, the hopes and dreams your family bestowed upon you with the lifelong gift of a name. It's the ever-powerful themes of geography, hope, loss, and love, all woven through the conduit of a name. Noah means from love in Japanese and freedom in Hawaiian. It means vigorous motion in Hebrew, something I'm often in. Aviv means spring, which reflects my sunny disposition. My last name means God is my judge. Knowing your name is knowing part of who you are. I am Noah Aviva Daniel.
It all began with a big idea to have the school community see my SSC students as capable as their peers. How to do this? Have them become school leaders. We began to think as to how our class community could play a role in our school's caring community. We thought, what can we do? We could do simple acts of kindness, such as holding open the door for others. We could share our learning space with others. Our flexible learning space became open for anyone who needed a space to work. Our space was also open for extra support outside of class time. It became a comfortable place to be. I found my students' strengths and worked with those strengths. I discovered that a number of my students had strengths in the area of technology. The students were given the opportunity to review their strengths and needs from their IEP. From there, they created cue cards to remind them of their strengths and needs and learned how to advocate for their needs in their classes. Our strength in technology helped us win the Ignite Technology grant. We taught the staff at the staff meetings how to use assistive technology. We began to further our technology learning when we learned how to use the green screen. We used the green screen to create information skits about problem solving. We took our knowledge of technology outside of our classroom once again. This time, we taught other classes how to use assistive technology and help students with general technology problems. We learned how to use Equatio. I tweeted out our learning. This tweet led us to sharing our knowledge in a DLN story about our use of Equatio. We are sharing our knowledge of technology in the Assistive Technology Fair. We are going beyond the classroom walls and sharing our technology understanding with our school community. We took on the responsibility of cleaning the technology carts each month. We dusted and aired out the document camera filters. We took our leadership outside of technology and presented at assemblies. We presented such topics as the Terry Fox Run and Valentine's for Veterans. We wrote and broadcast announcements as we collected money for the Terry Fox Run. We got the word out and our school collected over $1,200. Our leadership continued when partnering with other classes to help younger students in language and math. We even designed some math games for the younger students to play. Collaboration with our grade 1 and 2 friends gave us the opportunity to demonstrate our leadership skills when helping to guide them with their research. We ran and organized the food drive for our school. We made announcements to encourage students and staff to bring non-perishable food for the drive. We also made posters for the food drive with some grade 1 classes. The Valentine's for Veterans made us feel a sense of pride. We created Valentines for our Canadian veterans. We can only imagine the veterans' faces when they open the Valentines on February 14th. It is always exciting for my students to receive a Yes I Can award. They have received these awards for academics, athletics, and technology. My students now see themselves as capable as their peers, and even as leaders with their strengths in the areas of technology and public speaking. My underperforming students have learned how to lead others using their strengths.
Hey guys, welcome to Collaboration in the Classroom. My name is Jessica Reid. My Twitter is Kentucky Girl in Alabama, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about collaboration in the classroom. All right, so we're going to be talking about what is co-teaching, how can this benefit you in the classroom, and how can you use Google and Google Classroom to make it a more functional classroom or space for yourself and your kids? All right, my story. We've been teaching ELA for the last 2 years. This is my co-teacher, Miss Wright. Get it? We're reading right. It's the best co-teaching I've ever been a part of, and it's because we communicate with each other. What is co-teaching? Co-teaching is when 2 or more educators share a classroom and provide instruction to a group of students. Typically, a co-teacher is going to be a general ed teacher with a special education teacher. Another way to look at it, co-teaching is very similar to a marriage. It can be great at the beginning of the year, and by the end of the year, you can end up in divorce. Or you can continue to be going really strong with it. What's the benefit for you? Co-teaching allows the students to have 2 awesome teachers in the classroom. Imagine if a student clicks better with you than the other teacher and vice versa. It makes the students feel special. There are 6 steps to having a great co-teaching experience. The first one is rapport, teaching style, strengths and weaknesses, IEPs, working together, and taking risk. All right, the first one, establish a rapport with one another. Make sure that you guys are on the same page and that you have figured out what the likes are, what the dislikes are, and you build some kind of common bond because you're going to spend a lot of time together. The next one is both identify your different teaching styles and use them to create your own style for the classroom. Maybe you like to use the computer more. Maybe you're more Google friendly. Maybe your co-teacher likes to use video clips. Just talk about it. You need to discuss your strengths and weaknesses in the classroom. Maybe you have better classroom management than your co-teacher. You need to figure that out so that you can equal each other out in the classroom. All right, you need to talk about any IEPs, ELL, 504 students, and even gifted students and figure out how to cover all of their different needs because you're here to make sure that every single kid is learning and they're understanding the material. All right, you need to work together on coming up with a plan of action and creating a united front. You need to figure out what is your next step. What are you going to do after you've got your main idea lesson? What's the next thing that you're going to do to continue to grow? All right, take risks. Think outside of the box when it comes to lesson activities. Make sure you don't always do lecture. Maybe come up with a breakout scenario or come up with a cool project-based learning. You just got to take a risk. All right, communication is key. To be successful at all in the classroom, you have to talk with each other. You have to keep each other informed about what's happening with all of the students in the classroom. Not gossipy, just informational. All right, how can Google help? From a gen ed perspective, it allows you to keep everything in one place and the students are able to keep everything together. You can plan and share things even when you're absent. From a SPED teacher, you're able to write and comment. You can make assignments. And it shows the students that the teachers are all on the same page. Google Classroom, how you add it, you go to google.classroom.google.com. You click on the class you want to add co-teachers to. At the top, click People, and you'll be able to add somebody. All right, you're going to invite individual teachers or a group. Enter the email address of the teacher or group. As you enter text, Classroom will show different addresses from your school. And then once you find it, click a teacher or group and click invite. And then you can do that as for many people as you need to. All right, Google Classroom. How do you get it to work for you? Use Google Calendar, have students identify dates, create presentations for them, even breakout scenarios. You can assign a certain group of students work, differentiate, and you can work collaboratively with students on their writing. All right, to wrap it up, co-teaching is where 2 awesome teachers get to work with kids and make the classroom a fun experience for them. Using Google Classroom and sharing responsibilities for all the kids make the loads lighter for everyone and gives the kids more resources to use throughout the school day. And here are my resources. Thanks so much for listening to my talk, and I hope you have a great day.
A few summers ago, my school's principal told me I would be really great at advising the new TED Ed club that was forming at our school. I knew I loved TED Talks, research, and helping students find their passion, so this seemed like a promising fit for me. Together with my co-advisor, we launched our district's first ever TED Club with 23rd and 4th graders in the fall. Now, you may have heard me mention my principal telling me I'd be really great at leading the club. Some of you have possibly been voluntold yourselves. I'm not trying to be snarky with my voluntold comment. On a side note regarding being voluntold, I feel that getting the nudge from school admin helps me push myself into activities I normally may shy away from. We are continually asking students to step out of their comfort zones, so as educators, we should model this. We didn't have any idea on where to begin. We signed up for a webinar with the TED Ed organization. They have lots of resources and were quick to answer any of our questions. We did find that many of the materials were geared more toward older students, so we had to modify to some extent. We decided to ask the students to start by stating their claim and then to find 5 facts that supported their topic. This librarian loves research. From there, we had each student think of and write why each fact was important and had them insert personal stories as often as possible. This type of writing can be difficult to teach as it's not overly prescriptive. And as an adult, I sometimes don't know what my own passions are. So lighting that fire in 8 to 10-year-olds can be a huge challenge. But I guess, well, that's part of the fun, isn't it? After they wrote their talks, we had students create a Google slide presentation with very few words and use Creative Commons images. Students had wonderful topics such as saving the earth or access to clean water. We did have them narrow down topics so they weren't so grand. We showed them TED Talks that we personally vetted as to not have too mature of content. Our superintendent of schools was the mastermind behind starting a TED Ed club because he had worked with a coach and written his own talk. His talk was about how education is like pizza. I had watched it when it was first published, but I forgot it had some slightly mature content and we showed it to our kids without hesitation, only to remember as it was playing that maybe this was not for 8-year-olds. Oops, from that moment on, we thoroughly vetted any TED Talk shown to club members. Sorry, Dr. Nagler. We learned a lot that year. For instance, we waited too long to start practicing the presentation portion of our talks. Being up on stage is scary to 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, and we had to really rehearse over and over to get it right. The talks went amazingly well that first year, and everyone was blown away by our students' passion and poise as they delivered their talks. I was even in awe of how well they did. My co-advisor and I were exhausted, but once we saw the students up on stage, that sealed the deal and made the grueling process worth it. We had a father almost in tears, beaming with pride how his son had the courage to get on stage and give a TED Talk when he himself was painfully shy as a child. The following year, our central administration decided to expand the TED Ed Club to all 5 schools in the district. Now in our 3rd year at my school and 2nd year with all 5 schools, we have a successful program at each. We are fortunate that we have the support of our administration. They were the group leading the charge. Our Board of Ed is committed to the club as well. They pay a stipend to each teacher and allow 2 to 3 teachers per school to advise each group. Here are some important components to a successful TED Ed club or TED Talks in your classroom curriculum. If you're planning to host a club, make sure you have permission from your district powers that be. Go to the TED Ed website to find out how to get started. There are set guidelines. Have a beginning date and ending date set so you don't get lost in the sauce. Using the TED Ed materials to plan each meeting is really important, but you must also modify for your age group. Make sure you vet any talks you show. Don't make my mistake. Be flexible with your schedule and your students. Understand this may not come easy to all of them. Facts about a topic are important, but most important is the personal story behind the topic. A TED Talk isn't a PowerPoint speech. It's a story or a narrative about each student's chosen topic. Leave plenty of time to prepare the presentation piece. Teach students how to speak with tone and inflection in their voices and to use hand gestures where appropriate. Getting up on stage and performing does not come naturally to most children. Reach out to others who have done this before or anybody that's currently doing it. It does take a village. Social media is a fantastic way to connect. Using the hashtag TEDEdTalks or Ideas Worth Spreading can connect you to others. Write your own talk along with your students so you can model the process. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Have a great day, and good luck if you start your own club.
What does success look like? For many of our students, success is synonymous with the effortless ability to achieve a good grade. However, for those of us who are familiar with the concept of growth mindset, we know that this is the opposite of what growth mindset tells us. In fact, growth mindset tells us that success looks more like this. The idea that success looks like this image on the right is not the reality for many of our students. So what can we do to change that? I'm going to be discussing strategies for fostering growth mindset in the classroom that range from explicitly posting visuals, which I'm sure many of you do already, to implicitly changing the planning and assessment in your classroom to better reflect the ideals of growth mindset. The old adage that actions speak louder than words is true when it comes to fostering the idea of growth mindset in the classroom. However, as a preliminary step, changing the vocabulary that we utilize when speaking with students is a small step with a big impact. It can be tricky to move away from phrases such as great job or you're brilliant. However, recognizing that these words actually have a detrimental impact on our students makes it easier to adapt phrases that praise process rather than product and focus on a student's efforts rather than their achievements. Phrases such as you worked so hard on that encourage students to value the time and effort required to be successful and serves as encouragement to both our struggling as well as our high achieving students, because let's be clear, facilitating a growth mindset is beneficial to all students. For students who struggle, it recognizes the hard work put forth even when the product of their efforts hasn't met the expectations. Praising effort and process means that students are able to consider their strengths rather than their deficiencies, and they can begin to apply the next steps because they feel successful. And on the other hand, students who are traditionally high achieving benefit from hearing statements that reinforce growth mindset because it pushes them to take risks that they may otherwise shy away from because they know that their efforts and not their outcomes are what matter. Earlier, I alluded to explicit steps that can be taken in the classroom. For example, creating a growth mindset bulletin board or printing off quotes about growth mindset. Another option would be incorporating books about growth mindset and then discussing them. There are implicit strategies that can be used to reinforce a growth mindset as well through thoughtful classroom setup. For instance, in my classroom earlier this year, I created a fridge section front and center on my chalkboard, and the purpose of this was very intentional. I wanted to create an interactive student space where students could self-select and display work that they're proud of. Very quickly, I noticed students displaying work that was still in progress, and I heard other students providing feedback about the work that was incomplete. The beauty of using growth mindset terminology is that students internalize it and they begin to use it as well, both in conversations as well as in terms of their own self-talk. This changes the words that students think in, and it empowers them to strive for a level of success that was previously restricted by worry that the desired outcome may not be achieved. Providing students with opportunities that inherently model the growth mindset ideal turns our words into actions and allows students to experience rather than just hear about growth mindset. But it's easier said than done. How can we plan our lessons and assessment to implicitly reinforce growth mindset? Planning with learning goals and success criteria that are cumulative, for example, is one way to model growth mindset because students are continually building on their prior learning and finding success in familiar criteria. To enhance this, incorporating cyclical assessment opportunities also helps students because the feedback they receive during reflections, as well as through teacher and peer feedback, remains relevant to the learning activities that come next. And this allows students to see the impact of implementing the feedback and reflection that they have done and received. Robust assessments for, as, and of learning that invite students to think critically and which build upon one another is also really important. So something like Genius Hour, which I did with my grade 7s last year, applauds the learning process and forces the focus onto the process rather than the product. Similarly, incorporating reflective elements into assignments allows students the opportunity for that assessment as learning piece, once again, bringing the focus to the process rather than the product. Yet another option is providing students with assessments and feedback throughout the learning process and really emphasizing that idea of the creative process. So for instance, having students perform, provide self and peer reflection, and then use that feedback in a subsequent performance underlines that idea of growth mindset because it's the process that's being assessed, the way in which a student has evolved their performance over time. Open-ended questions in language and math are another way to implicitly model growth mindset because there's a point of entry for all students and the focus is on explaining your thinking rather than obtaining the right answer. Just as we tell our students, we need to have a growth mindset. Whether your next step is to bring in some quotes or books about growth mindset or think about your assessment, it's the process of moving toward your goal that needs to be celebrated. Let's each commit to trying something we haven't tried yet.
Hi everyone, my name's Annalisa and I'm going to be talking to you about class discussions for a better world. I used to be a grade 4 and 5 teacher at Lorna Jackson Public School, and now I'm an instructional strategist with Parlay Ideas, a discussion app. Turn on the news, Facebook, Twitter, or any other social network, and you could see that outrage drives so much of our current reality, especially in the media. It's challenging to navigate, and most especially for our students. These issues can trigger hostility, allowing outrage to thrive. The media rewards drama, false facts, and the big tech companies are now showing us only what we want, sheltering us from diversity of opinion and disconnecting us from perspectives that may be different from ours. Our society is becoming increasingly polarized. The median Democrat and median Republican are much further away from each other than they were 20 years ago, making it much harder to compromise. How can we expect our students to navigate and enter these increasingly contentious conversations? How can we equip them with the skills they need to solve big problems of the future? On top of this, the reality is that automation is rapidly transforming our society faster than we even know how to adapt. We must start teaching our students now how to contend with this complex future. If we want our students to succeed, we need to teach them radical open-mindedness and the value of understanding each other. We need to teach them how to triangulate their own views in search of the truth. And we need to expose our students to thoughtful disagreement. Instead of teaching them how to view each scenario or how to think, of course, as educators, our focus is on equipping them with the skills that they need to engage and proactively contribute. The World Economic Forum has outlined the major skills needed for the future. By looking at this list, we could see that the ones our students need for the future are the same ones that make us uniquely human. So how can we foster these in our teaching? That's where discussions come in. Discussions allow students to practice and improve important skills that they need for the future, such as collaboration, communication, and critical thinking. And discussions are human by nature. They've been a core feature of our societies and communities dating back thousands of years, just like in the Roman Senate. Dialogue is integral to solving problems across diverse viewpoints, and our democracy depends on it. Discussions are our way forward. Discussions also drive learning outcomes. John Hattie's longitudinal research on influencers of student achievement found that discussions come out on top as one of the most effective strategies teachers can use, even better than some of the core activities that are very common in classrooms today. Discussions can be had for nearly every topic and every grade level. The magic happens when they could be student-led, so students can drive these conversations themselves. Asking higher order thinking questions are essential to prompt diversity of thought in classroom discussions. Ensuring that we don't ask leading questions is also important to keep in mind. In student-led discussions, students can practice how to respectfully challenge and question each other. Providing them with peer feedback questions or even sentence stems can help structure their own contributions and trigger more substantial responses in the discussion. Teaching students how to engage in discussions involves not only thinking about their contributions, but also how they listen to one another. Ask students some questions to make them aware of their own participation, such as these ones. Am I attentively listening to understand, or am I constantly thinking about my turn to speak? Am I trying to win this conversation or explore these ideas so we could all understand better? And am I encouraging others to speak or taking up a lot of talking time? Overall, incorporating student-led discussions into our planning will prepare students to be ready to lead our society into an unpredictable future. Discussions drive achievement, foster skill development, encourage citizenship, and support social emotional learning. Parlay Ideas is a tool you could use in your class to provide and foster meaningful, measurable, and inclusive discussions. You could try online discussions, face-to-face, or you could browse the universe in our content library of ready-made discussion prompts. So if you'd like to try it out, go to parlayideas.com and you could learn more to get started. Thanks for listening to how discussions in your classroom can support a better future for us all.
Hi everyone, and welcome to My Ignite Talk. My name is Rhodenizer, and we're going to talk reflection. Throughout this presentation, you're going to see lots of pictures, fantastic, awesome pictures taken by my friend, Mark LeBeau. And he takes great shots, just like this one. So in my time, reflection has been the thing that has changed the most for me. It is what has shaped me the most as an educator, and I want to share my story a little bit with you. So it all started off in a really small school, a space that was great, but totally isolated. In fact, I was the middle school. There was no one else around me. And what I was looking for was the ocean of knowledge that just wasn't present in my environment. I felt like even though I had a nice little oasis, there was an ocean out there, and I wanted to be able to find it. So in my early years as a teacher, that isolation was stifling. And once I got past my initial fear, I just wasn't sure where to go. I knew other people had these things around them, but there I was in the middle of a desert. I was solo, and what I knew could be out there, or maybe even once was, is no longer there. And for me, what was a huge trigger and a huge support was Twitter. Twitter created this ocean of information that had not previously existed, and while overwhelming at times, it was something that really brought a lot to my education and allowed me to see what was going on. It was the door that opened that realized for me that I had to take the jump. I had to take the jump, and I had to reflect more regularly. The box at the bottom of my lesson plans wasn't enough. I had to reflect out there and out there into the world. There must be a way to do that. And what I saw people doing was blogging. So that's what I did. I blogged, and I had a webpage, and I blogged, and let me tell you, it wasn't very good. Blogging wasn't really my thing, writing not really my thing. And when I took that jump, what I really realized is there's a lot more jumps to take. So many more jumps you need to take, and they're in sequence and in succession, one after the other. This was a really sort of comforting realization that I can keep doing it and keep pushing it and keep going. So the next big jump for me was my podcast. My podcast was basic. Had a set of headphones and my computer, and off I went, and I brought people in, and I started to have these regular scheduled conversations once a week with educators from all over the world, and I learned so much. The jump continued when Voice Ed Radio, a fantastic radio network, and Stephen Hurley got me involved, and we had this huge network of all sorts of people connecting. And what I discovered was that I had a PLN, my professional learning network, and it had grown. I had this gigantic, massive PLN of all sorts of people that I knew, some a lot, some a little, and it was a great opportunity for me to see what was out there. The next realization I made was, while that was wonderful and important, my Power PLN, the select people who I have a chance to have regular, deep conversations with, brought tons to me. They were the people that allowed so much more depth to happen. Not just learning what's going on, but going into a lot more depth. And so that reflection publicly allowed those people, my Power PLN, my PLN, to reach out to me, to ask me questions, to wonder why I'm doing that, to think about the next thing. And that pushed me and continued more. How can I reflect more, and how can I have more happen? Well, Mad PD. So Peter Cameron and I got together, and Mad PD is a conference that happens with hundreds of people all over the world that share what makes a difference in their life and education. So for me, it's all been about change. We start with one thing and we can convert it to the next. We need to be aware that if we put things out there, then that is where the change will happen. Doing all this public reflection has allowed me to create deep thinking, has allowed me to push new learning, and allowed me to think of things in a different way. Education is, without doubt, in constant change. There's always one thing shifting and moving and becoming something else. We have to be constantly looking and thinking and reflecting, and what we need to do is publicly. If we're just doing that at the bottom of our lesson plans, we're not extending and pushing ourselves as much as we can. When you look in the mirror, what is it that you see? What is it out there? What is it that you want to push, that you want to expand, that you want to have more? Let's reflect, let's tell the world, let's be awesome and epic.